get ready to kickstart your journey to wellness with the ultimate guide in town. Welcome to Wellness Unleashed with Doc Stone. Join us as we journey through the realms of natural healing, where ancient wisdom meets modern science. Prepare to be inspired by stories of transformation and triumph. With Doc Stone as your guide, discover the power of holistic living and the joy of reclaiming your health. Prepare for a whirlwind adventure through the world of holistic wellness. From fitness freaks to spiritual gurus, we've got something for everyone. So grab your sneakers, your yoga mat, or just your sense of curiosity, and let's dive headfirst into a world of wellness wonders. Wellness Unleashed with Doc Stone. Your path to a vibrant life starts now. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Wellness Unleashed with Doc Stone. I am your host, Jeremy Doc Stone, holistic health practitioner, and your companion on this journey, all things natural wellness. In this show, we aim to help our audience to learn about different conditions and to use and to support their health using holistic approaches, natural medicine, alternative medicine, integrative medicine, complementary medicine, you name it. We want to help you to unleash your full wellness potential. And I am excited about our topic this evening. We're going to talk about Lyme, and I'm not talking about that green fruit that you squeeze on that margarita glass, but I'm talking about Lyme disease. Before we get started, this is our brand new studio streaming system, so we may be working out a little bit of bugs in it, but we think that it's going to help us to provide even better services to you than what we were using in the past. And so, if there's any issues, apologies up front, but we'll get them worked out and get all the technology figured out. But we are here to serve and to help you. And so we're going to talk about Lyme disease this evening. As always, before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that we do not diagnose or treat any kind of disease or illness on this show. The show is for education and for entertainment purposes only. If you are suffering any kind of a medical condition, please make sure that you consult with your licensed healthcare practitioner. Also, any of the alternative modalities, supplements, herbs, anything like that we talk about this evening in support of Lyme disease, these statements have not been approved by the FDA or any other governmental authority. So we just got to put those disclaimers out there up front. If you do have any questions about the stuff that we talk about, please feel free to put a comment in the comment section below, whatever platform that you are watching this on. Tonight's show is brought to you by Doc Stone's Natural Medicine and Wellness, where we provide holistic health coaching to help you to reach your full wellness potential. It's also brought to you by the good guys over at Aerostream TV Network, for which where this show is actually airing at, and also for the network for which I'm a producer on. If you are interested in having your own television show, whether it be in the medicine space, the health space, or whether it be in business or leadership, just reach out. We'll be happy to get you connected to help you to get your own show. Our show is airing on major streaming platforms, including Roku, Amazon Fire TV. It's also on your Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, so that you can listen to this show on the go. Wherever you are joining us, whichever platform you're watching this on, please make sure that you do like and subscribe, and be sure to share it with your friends. That being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into tonight's topic and really get going, because there's a lot to cover. Now, if we do end up going a little bit longer, we may split this up into 2 episodes, and next week we'll come back with the rest of it. But we're going to try to get this at least a basic understanding of Lyme disease, so that you know basically what the symptoms are, what the different kinds of treatments are, and how you can get tested for Lyme, which is oftentimes misdiagnosed. So let's get started. All righty. So natural approaches to Lyme disease. You can find me on social media at Doc Stone's Natural Medicine. We are on Instagram, YouTube, and on Facebook. We'd love it if you'd go and like us there and help us to spread the word of natural health and wellness. All right. So we always want to start out with what is Lyme disease? Now, there's a chance that you've probably heard about it, and there's also a chance maybe that you haven't heard about it. True story, personal here. I grew up in the north. We didn't have Lyme disease in Alaska. Like when I'm talking north, I'm talking about far north. So I was not real familiar with Lyme disease until I moved down to the south here a couple of years ago and ended up having the very first tick bite in the family when a tick was attached to my young son, and I had never seen one before attached to anything. And then I ended up getting some attached to me. My wife's ended up, and so we really learned a lot about ticks and tick bites and Lyme disease. And so now I understand really just what a big issue this is in the United States and how many people are so negatively impacted by Lyme disease. So Lyme is a condition that is caused by infection of a bacteria called Borrelia burgdorferi. There are a couple other Borrelia subspecies of this bacteria that are also lumped into here. It is what's called a spirochete bacteria. So in other words, it looks like a corkscrew and it's able to kind of dig into tissues and to hide out. It is a nasty disease. People who have suffered with Lyme disease for many, many years will tell you that it is a very miserable condition to have to deal with. Oftentimes very frustrating because it's misdiagnosed by conventional medical practitioners. It's missed a lot by inadequate testing, which we'll talk about in a little later. And because it's what we call the great mimicker, it mimics so many other conditions or diseases that oftentimes people don't, including medical practitioners, don't even really think about it being Lyme disease. And so clients and patients tend to suffer for many years if it's not caught early enough. So let's talk about it by the numbers, as we always do. About 476,000 estimated cases in the U.S. are diagnosed each year. It's a lot more than it was just, say, 10, 20 years ago, as we're beginning to actually look at symptoms and associate them more with Lyme disease. As I mentioned, it mimics so many other conditions. And when we begin to look at the symptoms of this disease, you'll understand why it mimics what we mean by that and why it can be so hard to catch and to diagnose. It's most common in northeastern portion of the United States, up in Maine and Pennsylvania and Connecticut areas, and the Midwestern, upper Midwestern United States as well. It's less common on the West Coast, though it is also there. It affects all ages and races, but the ages of under 15 and over 45 tend to have more diagnoses each year, and it tends to be diagnosed more in white people and male individuals. But again, it's important to realize that it can be in all ages, all races, and all sexes. There's nobody that's really immune from getting infected. We just see more infections in these population groups. It is more prevalent in outdoor workers. So if you have a job that's outside in tick prevalent areas or tick prone areas, then you're more likely to catch Lyme disease. And if you recreate outside. So if you like to get out camping, if you go hiking, if you love to go out and just enjoy nature in tick-prone areas, then you're going to be more likely to be diagnosed with Lyme disease. And it's important to remember that, or to know that according to the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, they consider Lyme disease to be the most fastest growing vector-borne disease in the United States. So vector-borne means it's transmitted by insect or some other type of animal to humans. So it is the fastest growing vector-borne disease in the United States. So understanding what signs and symptoms to look for is very, very important, as we know that even though we're estimating about 476,000 people in the U.S. are diagnosed each year, that there's probably a lot more people that have Lyme disease than that, but it's being missed and being misdiagnosed. So how's it transmitted? So it's almost solely transmitted by one of these nasty little buggers we call a tick. In particular, the Borrelia bacteria is transmitted to humans by the black-legged tick, also known as the deer tick. And so that's almost solely transmitted by that. Now, you're going to find in different literature, some will say it cannot be, or there's no credible scientific evidence that is transmitted from human to human, or that is very rare to be transferred from mom to fetus. But first of all, it can transfer from mom to fetus, though it doesn't happen all the time. It is rare. And a recent 2021 study that was published in PubMed, where oftentimes medical papers and journals are published, did indicate that it might be possible to be transmitted sexually, much like the syphilis disease. Now, syphilis is a different organism, a different bacteria, but it's the same class. It's still a spirochete. So there's a lot of mimicry between the Borrelia bacteria and the syphilis bacteria. But in this study in particular, they noted a few things, and I thought it was pretty interesting. One is that they did a study or they did swabs of the female vaginal area, and they took semen samples from men, and they were able to find this bacteria from people that actually had Lyme disease. They're able to find it in the different the different fluids, the sexual fluids, indicating that it might be possible for it to be transmitted. They've also done research with rodents and with dogs, and in one particular study, they took a female dog that did not have Lyme disease, that did not have the Borrelia bacteria, and then they bred that female dog to a male dog that did have the Borrelia, the Lyme disease bacteria. And after they bred them, they tested the female again, and lo and behold, the female had the Borrelia bacteria, and the puppies had antibodies to it as well when those puppies were born. So it is possible there's a possibility, though, like I said, you'll read in a lot of things that there's no credible evidence. The fact that we're finding the Borrelia bacteria that causes Lyme in seminal and vaginal fluids, as well as these anecdotal studies as well with the dogs, and even with rodents, putting rodents in non-Lyme infected with Lyme infected, and then the non-Lyme infected getting infected. So there is a possibility that these may be transferred by these methods. It's not very popular. It's not very common, but there is a possibility. So I don't want to say absolutely you can't get it transmitted those ways, but it's doesn't seem to be as prevalent. The main source is through tick bites from the black-legged tick. There's 3 stages of Lyme disease that we're going to talk about. and each stage has differing symptoms, and so we'll talk about each of those. But those are localized. This is early Lyme disease, so this is the early stages of it. Disseminated or late Lyme disease, and then there's chronic Lyme disease, also known as post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome. And we'll dig into each one of these just a little bit more so that we have an understanding of these different stages of Lyme disease. So in localized early Lyme, symptoms occur days to weeks after a tick bite. So they usually anywhere from 3 days to 30 days is when you'll see the local Lyme disease occur. Symptoms may include what's called erythema migrans, and this is more commonly referred to as the bullseye rash. This is the classic bullseye rash in which you develop a rash around the tick bite site that radiates out, and it actually looks like a bullseye, which is where it gets its name there. Something to remember, though, is that upwards of nearly 50% of all cases of Lyme disease never present with the bullseye rash. So we can't use this as a definitive diagnosing marker for Lyme disease because so many cases of Lyme never present with the bullseye rash. Fatigue, fever, muscle pain, joint pain, chills along with the fever, and swollen lymph nodes. Now let's just stop right there for a second to look at those symptoms. Now, if you look at that symptoms, you'll probably begin to recognize right away why Lyme disease is so oftentimes missed and is misdiagnosed for something else. Because how many conditions do you know of that develop muscle pain and joint pain and fever and chills? Just think about the flu, swollen lymph nodes. So there's so many other conditions that present with these same symptoms. And as we mentioned, around 50% of cases of Lyme don't ever present with the bullseye rash that would be highly indicative of Lyme. So it's easy to see why we would miss diagnosing Lyme disease in a patient. Then the next stage is the disseminated or the late Lyme. So this is after the early stage. If it's not eradicated, it's not treated effectively, it's not removed from the body, then we begin to see it spread from the local area to become more systemic. And so, when it gets into there, we're going to see on top of those other symptoms that we saw that occurred in the early stage Lyme, we're going to see some other symptoms possibly come into play, such as neurological symptoms, forgetfulness, cardiac issues, facial palsy, which means one portion of the face actually becomes paralyzed, so it droops. So you'll see a drooping face on one half of it, which is, also a sign of stroke. So, it can be misdiagnosed and confusing. We're going to see more joint issues, especially in the large joints like the knees and the elbows. You're going to have considerable pain. And again, this can be easily confused for arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, those types of issues, neurological issues, numbing and tingling in the feet can be mistaken for neuropathy and for other types of issues there. So it's easy to figure out how we can misdiagnose this disease. And then we have chronic Lyme, post-treatment Lyme syndrome. So just like the name is, it becomes chronic. You may have cycles where you have, no or little symptoms and then have flares. This Lyme, this bacteria is a nasty bugger. It likes to hide and it likes to pop up its ugly little head at different times and really bring you down. It can seriously impact the quality of life for those who are suffering from it. So you'll have long-term symptoms. They persist even after treatment. Now, We'll talk about conventional treatment and what conventional medicine and what you're likely to get when you go to see a conventional medicine practitioner. And it doesn't always work. It's not always effective, and a lot of times people end up really suffering with this Lyme disease for many, 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 many years, even if they do get a diagnosis. So usually they'll suffer for many years because they're not getting diagnosed with it. But even if they do get a diagnosis, they'll tend to, if it's not treated effectively and in combination with natural modalities, it's likely that it's going to reoccur. And, you won't get all of those bacteria because, like I said, they like to hide in different areas, much like the H. pylori bacteria, which is another spirochete in the gastrointestinal system. It can be very, very hard to eradicate. So symptoms that you might see in the post-treatment Lyme syndrome or chronic Lyme include, on top of the other ones that we talked about, more fatigue, people feeling tired all the time. And this could be easily misdiagnosed as chronic fatigue syndrome as well, right? So we have all of these very, very similar symptoms that make it very challenging to diagnose this condition. You can have cognitive issues that mimic Alzheimer's or dementia. You begin to get forgetful, and you can have chronic pain. Oftentimes we'll see that a co-issue with Lyme disease is that people begin to fall into depression as well because of a lack of relief from these symptoms, the chronic pain, the chronic fatigue, the different issues, and the frustration with not having a diagnosis or not being able to get adequate relief from their symptoms. So it's a can be a very debilitating disease. So what are some of the risk factors for Lyme disease? Well, a weakened immune system, just like most other diseases. If we're not living a lifestyle through nutrition and supplements and lifestyle choices, what we eat, our diet, everything like that bolsters our immune system and gives us the strongest possible immune system, then we're going to be more susceptible to different bacteria, viruses, etc., including the Borrelia bacteria that might be transmitted via the tick. So always, making sure that we have a very robust immune system is very important. And then outdoor activities in tick habitats, areas where tick are prevalent, in the woods, playing out in nature, all those will make us more susceptible and increase our risk of getting this Lyme disease. So how is Lyme disease diagnosed in conventional medicine? Well, it's primarily diagnosed by clinical symptoms and history of tick exposure. Now, this is also a part of the reason why it's so difficult to diagnose and why it is missed by conventional medicine practitioners so much. Because as we've indicated, these symptoms are very, very similar to a whole bunch of other conditions, diseases, and because oftentimes people don't know that they had a tick bite, then they don't correlate the symptoms with an exposure to a tick bite. So they don't know to tell their physician that they had a tick bite. The Borrelia bacteria can be transmitted by adult black-legged ticks. However, it's believed that a large majority of Lyme disease infections come from the stage of the tick lifestyle that's called a nymph. This means that it's like a very, very tiny, not adult tick. It's what we call a baby tick. And I believe probably that one of the reasons why we would have so many more infections from nymphs than adult ticks is because many, many, many times when somebody has a nymph tick attached to them, they don't know it because it's so tiny. And so that nymph will remain attached for a number of days, which is really what it takes for a feeding tick to transmit the Borrelia bacteria. It needs to be attached for about 2 to 3 days or more, feeding on you. Whereas with an adult tick, which is more clearly visible, and if you're doing regular body checks for tick attachments, you might be removing them before they have the opportunity to transmit the bacteria that causes Lyme. So the nymphs or baby ticks, because they're hard to see, would have the ability to remain attached for the needed amount of time to transmit the Borrelia bacterium. So, it's when a patient doesn't know that they've had a nymph tick attached to them for 5 days, and a week or so later they come down with these symptoms, then they don't know to say, hey, I had a tick bite. Now, one of the things that I do and that I've done for my family since moving to the South and having our first tick bite is I actually keep an open note in my phone with when we find ticks attached to us, what part of the body it was, and the date, so that if we do develop any kind of symptoms, we have that information to be able to share with our healthcare providers, and we can let them know that, whether it was 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, we had a tick attached to this part of our body. And so I think that's just a good thing. If you do find yourself exposed to a tick bite, please make sure that somewhere that you're documenting it, and if you can, take a photo of it so that we know, what your practitioner knows what kind of tick that it was. And then the second way that conventional medicine diagnoses the Lyme disease is through some blood testing. But conventional medicine labs are really actually quite inaccurate. They don't use the most scientifically available lab testing, the most sensitive and most reliable lab testing, and it's more reliable in later stages, not in the earlier stages of the tick infection or the Lyme infection. But it misses an estimated 60% of Lyme cases. If you're in that 60%, that's pretty meaningful to you. So it's really, really important that you're kind of aware of the possibility. And if your doctor's if you're having these types of symptoms and your doctor's not bringing this up as a possibility, and you live in a tick-prone environment, please make sure that you're bringing it up with your doctor. Now, in our coaching practice, we help clients. We use the most scientifically advanced, really, tick-borne illness, tick diseases, laboratory testing from accredited laboratory, uses not just the normal testing, but also DNA testing for the bacteria, tests for that Borrelia bacteria, and a whole bunch of other what we call co-infections, because there's a bunch of other co-infections that oftentimes happen with Lyme disease that are transmitted by ticks. We do actually offer these. You can go right to our website or lab portal at docstone.wellproz.com. Just find the tick-borne diseases test there. You can order it right online 24 hours a day. We'll get it sent out to you. You collect your sample at home, send it back, and we'll get you that testing. This tick-borne testing is so advanced and so accurate that it's even now available in New York, which oftentimes a lot of our other direct to client testing is not available. So it is very, very accurate. And we are actually running a special through the end of October where you can get 15% all of our direct to lab testing, 15% off. All you got to do is use checkout. At checkout, use the discount code, the coupon code Spooky 2024, and that's Spooky 2024 in for Halloween time. Just go in and get that 15% discount, and we'll get that sent out to you right away. So let's talk about conventional treatment. Conventional medicine treatment starts out usually with oral antibiotics such as doxycycline and amoxicillin. This is usually done in the early Lyme disease, the early stage Lyme disease. Once it gets to the disseminated and the post-treatment, oftentimes they will use IV antibiotics such as ceftriaxone, and that will be used, or a combination of IV antibiotics and the oral antibiotics. Now, here's one of the challenges that we find with conventional treatment of Lyme disease, that really all they have to throw at it is antibiotics. And we know that bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics, but we also know that repeated and long-term use of antibiotics has so many other negative health ramifications for you. We know that taking a round of antibiotics destroys not just bad bacteria, but the good bacteria in your microbiome. We know that a good 70% or more of your immune system is actually created by this microbiome. So taking antibiotics, while it'll get rid of whatever that bacteria is, it can also lower your immune system, which can make you susceptible to reinfection or infection by other viruses and bacteria. Can make you more susceptible to parasites. So we know that while antibiotics can be life-saving at moments, that the overuse of antibiotics has had a negative impact as well, that we just don't think about enough before we just jump right into taking these antibiotics. So, it's important to make sure that we are doing whatever we can to identify Lyme early on, to get rid of it very, very quickly, and to not get into a cycle. I know some people who have had chronic Lyme that have gone through cycles of taking antibiotics over and over and over for 4, 5, 6 years and still have Lyme disease. And so it can be very, very challenging to get rid of. So let's talk about holistic and natural treatments to Lyme disease. As always, every week we talk about the first thing is a diet, right? We want to talk about diet because this is the best way to keep ourselves healthy, to keep our immune system robust, which, as we spoke about a little bit ago, is really, really key to helping to not only overcome Lyme disease, but to prevent it in the first place. Increase your antioxidant-rich foods. Avoid sugar and processed fast foods. And the reason is because these lower your immune system, but they also cause high amounts of inflammation inside of our bodies, and will weaken our immune system as our bodies try to fight that inflammation. And so we want to make sure that we're consuming foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Again, omega-3 fatty acids they reduce inflammation, so they're anti-inflammatory, and they help our overall, of course, heart health and everything else we know, but primarily through their anti-inflammatory effect on the body. And avoid hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fat, because these, again, are inflammatory. Whatever we can do to naturally decrease inflammation in our bodies, we're going to set ourselves up, not just with Lyme disease, but we're going to set ourselves up to be healthier and to be able to prevent and to overcome a number of other diseases. So there's some herbs and supplements that may help support you in this journey. Fish oil, again, because these are part of your essential fatty acids and they reduce that inflammation. Taking a high potency multivitamin mineral helps to keep our immune systems up, make sure that our bodies aren't trying to fight off from malnutrition or anything. Vitamin D3, which is also helps to boost your immune system. It's also anti-inflammatory and has a slew of other benefits. And I've talked about the importance of vitamin D3 in the past. The vast majority of the population, especially in northern areas, are very vitamin D3 deficient, and most conventional medicine practitioners are actually using less than optimal levels to determine whether or not you should supplement or not. So very, very important. Most people are deficient in this important, it's a vitamin, but it's actually more like a hormone in your body. And then we also have Banderol, which is a toba bark extract, and Samento. Now, these are a couple of herbs. And interestingly enough, there was a study done where they combined these two herbs together and gave them to folks with Lyme disease. And then they had another group where they gave them the standard treatment of doxycycline. And the herbal remedies were actually more effective at eliminating the Lyme disease than the doxycycline alone. It's likely that if you combine the two together, you'll even have a much more impactful treatment for this Lyme disease. But we do know that using natural herbal supplements oftentimes can be even more equally beneficial, but even more beneficial than sometimes prescribed medications without the side effects that, taking these antibiotics can have. Supplementing glutathione orally, or if you do have a functional medicine practitioner that's a licensed practitioner that can do IV therapy, doing IV glutathione can also be beneficial. Glutathione, of course, is one of the more important or foundational things for your immune system. So that's important. Cat's claw, ashwagandha. We've talked about ashwagandha on this show before. It's been used for thousands of years in Ayurvedic medicine. It is very common. You take it daily. It helps your body to regulate the stress response system, which then can bring down inflammation and just has a slew of health benefits. It's something that I take personally every day. And again, at the end of this show, we'll show you where you can get high quality practitioner grade ashwagandha with a discount from me. And we will be happy to share more information about that if you want to put a comment in the show. And then curcumin as well. Curcumin is something that I also take daily. It is great, not just for inflammation, and it's good for arthritis. It's good for diabetes. It has so many different health benefits, but it is also helpful for those with Lyme disease. Lifestyle changes. So stress management, again, just like any other disease, especially chronic diseases like Lyme disease, diabetes, all that, whatever you can do to manage that stress is going to improve your health. So stress management might include meditation, yoga, deep breathing exercises, and we've demonstrated those deep breathing exercises a few times on this show, but most of us don't breathe right. So we need to make sure that we are doing those deep breathing exercises. And then, for some people, prayer is stress relieving, whatever it is, getting out and exercising. Sleep hygiene. Our bodies heal when we're sleeping, not really when we're awake. So we need to make sure that we're getting good sleep at nighttime. Don't smoke or drink alcohol, again, because this causes inflammation, and it also, just lowers your immune system. And then stay active and exercise daily. So these different lifestyle choices. Now, being a holistic practitioner, that's why we talk about these things. We want to look at all different parts of the body, right? In all different modalities. We don't want to just get stuck on one. So not just on a supplement, not just on an herb or a medicine, but looking at all these different ways that we can do things. So we want to make sure that. So how do we prevent it? Obviously, prevention is key. And you can't always avoid tick bites, but here's some things that you can do, right? You can keep your lawn mowed in the area around your home mowed and free of fallen leaves. So pick up them leaves when they come down. Ticks like to live in them. Keep your grass short. Ticks like to hide in tall grass, and when you're walking through tall grass and there's a tick on a blade of tall grass, you're more likely to get down to your leg, that type of stuff. After spending time outdoors in a tick-prone area, have a family member look you over for ticks. I oftentimes look over my family members, ask them to look me over. I also look myself over, so I take a look when I'm outside. I check my legs, I check my arms, I check behind my back. Before I go to bed, I look in the mirror. I check out on my bare back, around my legs, everything like that, just to make sure that I don't see any ticks attached to me, because I want to remove them as soon as possible. So you want to remove ticks from your body promptly with tweezers, with very, very fine tip tweezers. You want to grab the tick by the head, not by the belly, because you don't want to squeeze its contents back into your body, and you want to do one steady pull straight out. Another great thing that you can do, and this is something that I learned when we took my wife, who developed a little bit of a rash after a tick bite earlier in the year, took her to primary care physician just to get checked out because there's a little bit of rash. And the doctor pulled out of her pocket what she called a tick key, said she uses it, suggests we get it. So this is a tick key. It's pretty easy. You can attach it right to your keychain if you want. You can order them. I think it's like $9 off at Amazon.com. Pretty simple. Just Google tick key, but it has a tapered head there, and basically you just put it around the head of the tick, and then you just gently slide it against your skin, and it pulls the tick right off. So certainly we ordered a few of these, one for each of us in our household. So there's that. Get it off as soon as possible. Again, it really, you're not likely to get Lyme disease within the first 24 hours, even sometimes 40 hours. They say it has to be 2 to 3 days or more for you to be able to get that. Once you do remove the tick, make sure that you clean the area really good with hot water and soap, or with rubbing alcohol. Make sure that you dispose of the tick. And they're really, really hard to kill. So, make sure you dispose of it. You can put it in a Ziploc bag with some rubbing alcohol. You can flush it down the toilet, whatever. But just make sure that you do dispose of it. And some states do have tick testing programs as well, where if you somehow preserve the tick and you send it in, they'll test it to see if it actually has Lyme disease. You can check probably with your state's public health office or division and see if they have one of those. And then maintain a healthy immune system. Again, that's super important for any disease or condition. So some of the resources, if you want to learn more about Lyme disease, or if you think that you may have it, or that you have it and you're suffering from it, the CDC.gov. There's also the American Lyme Disease Foundation at ALDF.com. There's LymeDisease.org, ProjectLyme.org, which is Project Lyme. And then the Lyme Disease Association at LymeDiseaseAssociation.org. They all have fantastic information and resources and support, especially for people who are suffering from Lyme disease. You could also reach out to us. You can leave a comment in here, and I'll answer the comments, or feel free to shoot an email to info@docstonesnaturalmedicine.com. And if we're able to assist you in any way, we'll be happy to do that. And don't forget, you can get practitioner-grade supplements, as I mentioned earlier, with a 5% discount courtesy of me by visiting the website there. I'll put it in the show notes as well for those who aren't watching this but are listening to it on our other platforms like Spotify and iHeartRadio. Use practitioner code 661753. That's my practitioner code. You cannot order these supplements without a practitioner. So you will need that, and be sure to register. You can order the ashwagandha or the other herbs and supplements we talked about, vitamin D3, oil of oregano, all those types of things you can order from there, and you can get that discount. And then if you are interested in functional medicine testing, such as the tick-borne diseases test sent right to your home, you can order directly from me 24 hours a day at docstone.wellproz.com. That's docstone.wellproz.com. Don't forget that through October, you can get a 15% discount on all of our laboratory testing by using the coupon code SPOOKY2024, SPOOKY2024. Get 15% discount off all of our laboratory testing. And so, hopefully that's been beneficial to you, and you have learned a bit about Lyme disease. A couple things to recap here to remember is that oftentimes it's misdiagnosed in conventional medicine. You don't always know that you had a tick bite because sometimes, or lots of times, you have nymph ticks, which you can't barely see. They're hard to see with the naked eye. And secondly, because this idea that you only get Lyme disease if you get that trademark bullseye rash has been debunked. We know that probably nearly 50% of all cases of Lyme disease don't present with that bullseye rash. And we also know that the conventional medicine lab testing, the blood testing that's used by conventional doctors, misses about 60% of all cases of Lyme disease. So it's no wonder that people suffer for a long period of time, that they're misdiagnosed. We know that these symptoms mimic a whole lot of other conditions. And so, it's important that, we're suffering from fatigue and cognitive issues and joint pain and, fever and chills, that we keep in the back of our mind the possibility that it could be Lyme disease. So I hope that has been beneficial for you. Again, please, whatever platform that you're on, make sure that you like and follow and subscribe. And just remember that if you are a health and wellness practitioner, and especially in the natural holistic space, and you'd like to be a guest on our show, I'd love to have you on the show and to interview you and to talk about how you're changing the world